Hey guys, welcome to the channel. I hope you enjoy this Manhwa Recap. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks. The date is January 2nd, 2020, and only 2 days after the new year. The water heater in our protagonist's room stopped working. Hwa-yoon is the name of our main character, as he remembers the old man who let him live in this apartment, complaining that his tenants don't know how to save on heating. He curses the old man, thinking that this might have been his warning that the heater was about to break. And if he tells him that it broke now, he would probably try to flip the situation and make Hwa-yoon pay for it. It seems our boy's life has always been a hassle, and his freezing apartment isn't making it any better. But the old man's words to wrap the windows in bubble wrap stuck with him, since he needs to find some solution to this blistering cold. But this trip to the grocery store would change his life forever. Hwa-yoon enters the store asking where he can find some bubble wrap, and he strolls past an aisle and sees a father and son. Lee Hwa-yu was the name he was given by his father, but he never met him and was orphaned. His name means peaceful achievement, but so far his life has been quite the opposite. Growing up in an orphanage was no cakewalk, but it made our protagonist desire to become stronger. And one day he realized that money was the root of his problems. Even during high school he had several part-time jobs, but due to his lack of education, it was only simple ones that hardly paid well. The world is a harsh place. Hwa-yoon stares at a wall of machetes, and what kind of store has a wall of swords? What goes on in Korea, honestly? Anyways, back to the story. Some people even stare at our boy, smiling at the blades, thinking he's some sort of weirdo. Looking at the blade brings back memories. Instead of being stuck as a DoorDash driver, Hwa-yoon worked as a mercenary. Since orphans couldn't enlist in the army, he fought numerous battles as a soldier in the group Force 1. It was made up of rejects and orphans, basically people with nothing to lose. This served as his first real home. He made bonds with his comrades and defeated pirates and other enemies, and would participate in wars in order to raise his prices. He snaps back to reality and goes to check out his new machete. The cashier tries to explain the uses of it, but it seems our boy already knows, and asks her to cut some bubble wrap as well. He sees her struggling to make a clean cut and takes it upon himself to slash it perfectly, which looks cool in the manhwa, but you cannot be doing that shit in real life. But all of a sudden he hears a commotion behind him. People are chatting about this weird creature, and all of a sudden a goblin breaks through the store window. And now no one thinks it's a joke, as the goblin starts cutting down humans left and right and begins eating their corpses. Hwa-yoon is shocked but has a weapon in his hand, and these are the same goblins that one would see in a video game. The little demon turns back around at him and jumps, thinking that Hwa-yoon is easy prey. But this is a grizzled mercenary. He chops the goblin in two, still confused on what the hell is going on. Hwa-yoon is hacking and slashing his way through the supermarket and notices a mother and child being swarmed. He lunges in to save them from the goblins, and the woman starts screaming, wanting to know what the heck is going on. But Hwa-yoon is more focused on his weapon. It's not ideal for cutting through flesh. He's going to need to find something better. But before he can finish this thought, another wave approaches. But this time, he has backup from a group of men, all carrying makeshift weapons. We shift to another character trembling in the closet, but Hwa-yoon grabs a chainsaw and tells him that this isn't some game. Praying won't save you. Either you fight or you die. The now party of men using chainsaws and crowbars starts killing the goblins one by one. Hwa-yoon notes that it doesn't matter if someone is weak. The desire to live is a strong force. Another man points for the group's attention, and they're alerted to a blue portal. They assume this is where the monsters are coming out from and debate how they can deal with it, but more goblins keep swarming out of the gate. The situation is becoming dim. Everybody's energy is decreasing, and they still don't have a solution to stop the enemies from spawning. Hwa-yoon notices that the goblins are coming out of the portal every 10 minutes. But even though he's figured out this information, he doesn't know how to stop them from coming out. And there is a limitation on all the things that they can use in the store. They're all heavy and take a lot of energy to use. One mistake can be fatal, and many people have died in the store already. If only Hwa-yoon had a gun. But to answer his prayers, a squad of soldiers burst into the scene and start blasting goblins, telling the survivors to start moving towards them. The military is fighting the monsters as Hwa-yoon helps people escape from their clutches. The timid man he helped from before is named Kim, and he thanks Hwa-yoon for saving him. But our protagonist just gives him a cold stare, telling him to go his own way from now on. The one thing that he's learned living his life as a mercenary is that the weak are always a burden, and the last thing he wants to do in this post-apocalyptic environment is carry around dead weight. And now that the soldiers are here with better weapons, he has even less need for this man. But Hwa-yoon quickly notices the soldiers are fighting with unstable breathing and shaky stances. These guys are barely any better. He strolls up to one and casually asks for his gun. The guy refuses, but Hwa-yoon just snatches it from him. The soldiers are quick to order for his arrest, but are shocked to see him blast 4 goblins in a split second. The soldiers recognize the name Force 1, the most ruthless mercenary company in the world, They realize the situation and follow his lead, and Hwa-yoon moves them through the store, taking out all of the goblins. But all of a sudden, a system screen appears. Game restarting. All this new information at one time is making his head hurt. What is this game? This screen? What is it referring to? And why is it restarting? These rifts and monsters, this has never happened before. But trying to understand what's going on is useless. The only thing he can do now is survive. As Hwa-yoon finishes his thoughts, a boss monster orc appears from the gate and roars at the top of its lungs. Everyone starts blasting, but the bullets are having little effect. But to everyone's surprise, Kim comes dashing in with a fire axe in hand and cuts the legs off of the orc, causing it to fall. It seems this guy knows the orc's weakness was its lower body. Hwa-yoon is shocked. Not even an hour ago, this guy was trapped in a corner begging for his life. But here he is now, calmly taking down a huge monster, and seems to know almost everything about it. And his strikes were so effortless. It seems he wants to make a friend of him now. That wasn't the last one, however, as 2 more orcs crawl out of the portal. But all of a sudden, even a kid starts charging in at them. Also, taking care of the orcs. Almost like he's done that before too. And the employee who was just losing her mind and couldn't even think straight is also destroying the orcs easily. What is going on? These 3 people who couldn't even stand to a single goblin are now fighting like experienced warriors. It seems to be the last of the monsters, but every turn leaves Hwa-yoon more confused. What caused this sudden change in the people? The system screen pops up again saying that the game has no tutorial, but each player is allowed 3 questions to ask. We get some backstory on our boy, and his nickname, fighting in Force 1 and roaming from battlefield to battlefield, was Fearless, the man who fears nothing. Some foreigners on his team gave him this name based on how calm he was in any given situation, and thanks to his traits, he was able to survive up until this point. And once again, trying to understand what's going on seems pointless, and Hwa-yoon thinks that this is some sort of sick joke. He usually wouldn't trust random messages in front of his face, but based on what he just experienced for the past couple hours, anything is possible. He asks his first question, what the hell is this game? The system starts explaining, but Hwa-yoon yells to get to the point. The system, with a female voice, argues that he needs to be specific with his questions, and continues and answers his first one. There are humans that were selected as players all over the world, and each has a new status window. Hwa-yoon calls his status window and sees he's at level 1, which is BS because he's farming goblins for like 5 hours. All of his stats are at 1, and he now has 3 bonus points. He starts to laugh, and actually is getting quite interested in this video game-like situation. The status window is proof that one is a player. The gates have appeared all over the world where monsters are appearing from. The system keeps on explaining, but Hwa-yoon cuts it short. He understands for the most part, and wants to know something more important. How did those civilians all of a sudden become trained fighters? The system says it doesn't know, they might just be natural-born players, but Hwa-yoon isn't satisfied with this answer. All of a sudden, the screen turns red and shows an error message. Hwa-yoon is the only player not to regress. To maintain the balance of the game, he will receive 1 special skill. I'm the only one who didn't regress. What does that even mean? Regress means to return from the future to the past, a word familiar with Hwa-yoon. How many times, regretting the outcome of battles, did he want to desperately go back and fix his mistakes? But now everything makes sense on how those people know how to deal with the monsters. It seems the system is telling the truth. He wants to ask another question, but the system is still searching for his skill. An older lady starts patting him on the shoulder, telling him to help with the fight, but this just ticks him off, telling her to shut the hell up. He asks if she regressed as well, but this lady has no idea. But thanks to this interaction, he learns something new. Only players regressed, and it's pretty easy to tell the difference between players and non-players. But for some reason, Hwa-yoon is the only player that didn't. This whole day has been one huge headache. Kim comes up to Hwa-yoon again and reintroduces himself, and it's thanks to this day that he was able to become a player in the future and fight countless dungeons. And he had to meet Hwa-yoon to give him his thanks. If he didn't help a cowardly boy like him and hand him a chainsaw, he would have been goblin food. These words clearly mean that he is from the future, further confirming the system's words. But shockingly, Kim continues that Hwa-yoon is the most famous player that entered the final dungeon. Now this is news to him. A small crowd builds beside him, saying it's an honor to meet him, and he slowly learns of his accomplishments in the future. They ask him about the final dungeon, but before he can answer, he receives his new skill, Butterfly Effect. He will get additional skill points for every time he changes the future. Hwa-yoon just keeps getting more and more confused, but more orcs parade out of the portal, ruining his train of thought. The 5 other players then to deal with them, and now, since learning that he is a player, he can see the name and levels of the monsters right above their head. As he is shooting the orcs, he realizes that firearms are not becoming as useful as he once thought. They cannot penetrate the orc's skin. Melee weapons work better in this case. When the regressors know exactly where to target, Hua-Yun sees an axe and moves to pick it up, but he gains a skill point saying that he's changed the future. Doing something this small can trigger it? He puts down the axe and grabs a drill and gains another skill point. An orc comes charging behind him and he throws the axe into one of its legs, causing it to fall over. He uses the same axe to remove the orc's head and gains yet another skill point. He asks Kim what weapon he was using the first time around and is informed that it was a chainsaw. And now he gets it. Every little thing he does different will award him with more skill points. So he should make a mission of living an opposite life to the one that he apparently did. Kim tells Hwa-Yun in the past he used paint thinner to kill 3 orcs, which leaves him impressed. He can not use the thinner and gain a skill point, or use the thinner in a different way. Whatever happens, he's starting to get interested. He proposes a plan to the other players, which they all agree to, and after each member incapacitated an orc, he doused them with paint thinner, then set them on fire, killing countless orcs, which also gave him a level up, and another bonus point from the butterfly effect. Even though he's getting all these points, he doesn't know what they're for, and even without allocating them, he can still chop off orcs' heads pretty easily. Another system prompt alerts him that a Brave Rookie achievement is complete, and is only awarded to the players who complete the hunt without allocating any points, and a new skill will be added. He gets Armor, level 1, which strengthens his exterior and scales with strength. A dark energy wraps around him and he's covered in new black clothes. The other players curse themselves since they didn't get the skill that they wanted, and Hwa-Yun turns asking what the problem is. But they inform him that he was the strongest due to that OP skill that he just got, and they're angry they missed the chance to get it. He didn't even get a bonus skill point for getting this achievement, so it makes sense that he did it before. Another gate opens and Hwa-Yun walks towards it, while Kim watches him closely. A new dungeon appears that has 11 goblins and 8 orcs. Hwa-Yun notices the difficulty and the fixed number of monsters, and if the gates are not cleared in a period of time, the monsters will emerge and wreak havoc. There's only one way to destroy a gate, to kill every monster inside it. The dungeon in front of him is D rank and only 4 people can accompany him. He wants to test out this new OP skill, Armor, and mess with the stat allocation. He's at a disadvantage at the moment since he does not have a lot of information regarding the system, so he needs to get as strong as possible fast. He has 15 bonus points from Butterfly Effect and he allocates all of them into strength. The first stage should be easy for Hwa-Yun. He is used to killing goblins and orcs by now. He jumps in and 3 others follow and the monsters immediately start attacking. A goblin latches onto Hwa-Yun's arm, but his armor skill activates. He grabs the goblin by the head and squashes it and gets another bonus point. It's only been 5 hours and his strength stat is at 16. The other players are in awe of Hwa-Yun's strength. Kim tells him that the armor skill was the sole reason he was the strongest Korean player. But now that skill will be his, as he slashes his axe towards Hwa-Yun. He lunges the chainsaw at him, but Hwa-Yun manages to block it with one hand. He laughs at himself and now it's his turn to attack. He breaks the chainsaw and grabs Kim by the neck. What a shame, he mutters. Hwa-Yun is used to hearing lies from those filled with greed. The battlefield has taught him many things. He figures that most of the players who awakened near him must have similar ideas, as he asks the 2 other bozos if they want to come at him next. He tells them to fuck off and breaks Kim's neck, leaving him lifeless on the ground. Hwa-Yun learned that mercy can be a double-edged sword, and oftentimes come back to bite him. This is the harsh reality, as he analyzes every situation devoid of emotion. He calmly warns the other 2 party members to leave now or risk death. Hwa-Yun inspects Kim's body and notices that the game is quite cruel. It pulls up an inventory screen next to players so others can take their loot. He picks up the necklace of the Goblin Champion and gets a +3 to strength and agility. He equips it and gets another bonus skill point. Every level up grants 3 skill points, so this necklace is equivalent to 2 levels. Its effect won't be as good later on, but right now it's pretty handy. For some reason, Bozo number 1 didn't get the message and is still here, and he's looting Kim's body. Hwa-Yun begins his assault of the remaining monsters, taking a chainsaw and slicing an orc down the middle. Even though he just got a +3 bonus to strength, he can't really feel a difference, as he kills the last monster, and with that, the dungeon is cleared, and it gives him 3 minutes to leave. If he cannot leave within that time frame, the outcome is unknown, even to those who have regressed, since those who are trapped here disappear. Hwa-Yun notices the boy from earlier asking him why he's still here. Does he want to die? But he insists to party up with him. He tells him it's time to leave, but the boy keeps begging to join him. After putting all... Hwa-Yun ignores his cries. Hwa-Yun ignores him and puts all of his new bonus points into strength, and now he's at 28. The boy starts tearing up, telling Hwa-Yun that even though he came back, his life in 10 years was still the same. He wants to be the right-hand man of a hero, and not the same loser that he was. He vows not to get in the way of Hwa-Yun, and his name is So. He realized that he wasn't the only one who regressed, so the odds were he would live his life mostly the same way, being a hopeless nobody killing low-level monsters. Compare that to being the sidekick of Korea's hero, and anyone would choose the latter. After analyzing the situation, Hwa-yoon begins liking the kid's thought process and immediately asks Min-soo if he wants to be useful to get information of 10 people who will be involved with him later on, friend or foe. And if he tries anything funny, he's gonna end up like Kim over there in the dungeon. He tells him to call him when he's done, and the kid runs off happy as can be. Hwa-yoon is excited to see what this kid can do. It's been 3 days since the gate started to open. At first, players tried to hide the fact that they are from the future, and with good reason. It's not that believable to a normal person. Even so, stranger things are happening with dragons and orcs roaming around, and all the people who want to live different or better lives than all the people who came back want to live different or better lives than the one that they had. And think of this as a golden opportunity. We see some effects of the regressors destroying the economy and current events. Hwa-yoon returns home and turns on the news, and the caster introduces Mr. Lee, the director of the Asia Pacific branch of Player Association. He breaks down the situation that players will be much stronger this time around, protecting the people, and informs the public that there shouldn't be anything to worry about. But beware of people trying to exchange information about the future for money. All of this just makes Hwa-yoon question what happened in the final dungeon. The newscaster continues that the regression event happened after the 21 strongest players entered the final dungeon. The news goes to commercial break, and Hwa-yoon is interested in these so-called strongest players. But thanks to watching this channel, however, he knows the reason that he was called hero. He gets another skill point due to his passive. He got another one from bubble wrapping his window, and every action he's doing at home right now is awarding him one. It seems he didn't return home once the game started, even getting points for sitting on the couch. He's gaining them so quickly it's hard to keep up. He has another 37 points to spend. He's curious on how he became Korea's strongest player when he didn't even have this broken ass ability. He also wants to know his previous strength in order to break that mold and rise even higher. He learned as a child that the weak surrender to the strong, and that is what fueled him into becoming who he is today, putting his life on the line in perpetual battle. He never thought that someone could be the absolute strongest, but this system gifted him that opportunity. He's watching the news and sees the unveiling of statues created for the top heroes, and Hwa-yoon is one of them. Alongside Musung and Cholsung, his soul leaves his body, seeing a statue made after him. They made this only 3 days after the regression. This must mean he was quite the player. Even as a mercenary, he had the highest fees, but to be this loved makes him question the achievements that he had in the future. The man breaks it down that these 3 heroes went into hiding after going into the dungeon. With all sorts of legendary skills and equipments that they have accumulated, now all the regressors are in an arms race to collect those same powers for themselves. The heroes have not shown themselves, and there's a new regulation in the Players Association, stating that any player who's entered the final dungeon will be pardoned for any crimes that they commit. Hwa-yoon turns off the TV and he's learned that there's going to be many people after him, and he can legally whoop all their asses. He puts on his coat and gets another skill point and gets ready to leave. He's running through the streets, concealing his identity and continuing to build skill points. He's heading downtown and notes that he probably didn't go there the first time around because he's getting points almost every step of the way. He puts all 52 of his new skill points into agility, and right after this he notices a huge boost to his speed and starts climbing buildings, soaring through the air. He flies off the building and approaches the statue, and he's trying not to get a lot of attention, but that's kind of bullshit because he just pulled up like Spider-Man. He needs to be careful on who he reveals himself to. Players will hide their desire to kill him, just like him, and he should treat every person he meets as a potential enemy. He sees some players holding weapons out in their hands, but the people who Hwa-yoon is looking for are the ones who are cult-like, praying to these statues. If Hwa-yoon can get this cult to tell him the events of his past life, it'll be pretty useful information. He's just sitting there appreciating his cool nickname, Shadow of Death, and all of a sudden, someone flies through the air having the audacity to break the head of his statue. He lands and puts his mace back in his inventory, but looks straight at Hwa-yoon. Talk about bad timing. The 2 men lock eyes and the statue destroyer starts to run, but he can't get away from Hwa-yoon and his agility stat. He dashes after him, grabbing him by the neck, asking to know who he is and how he knows him. The man tries to take out his mace, but Hwa-yoon snatches it from him. He asks again for the man's name and who he is working for. The mace he just yeeted from him is the mace of the orc champion and has some impressive stats. Hwa-yoon thinks this guy must be in a guild to have such a rare weapon so early on. He reminds the man of the news and heroes are above the law. so if he doesn't start talking, he will be killed. The man begs to be let go, but Hwa-yoon gets more serious. You're about 10 seconds away from dying. Name and affiliation. The man realizes Hwa-yoon isn't joking around and says he's Changbei from the General Guild, and started answering every question, in a hope that he won't be killed. Hwa-yoon learned that he is the target of the General Guild's plan, and they want to collect all of the items and skills he had in his previous life. Hwa-yoon asks what the first skill they plan to get is, and the man answers with stealth, and says it's in the gate to the Lycan dungeon. He tells him that that skill he learned comes from a dungeon that opens in 3 days, and wonders why he's asking him for this information since he should already know. The man cries out saying he's only doing what he's been told, but Hwa-yoon should be able to confirm this info. It was his skill after all. And he explains the plan to stalk the dungeon out with 100 players. The man continues that the guild is certain that Hwa-yoon will try to get his old abilities back. Hwa-yoon gets another skill point and thinks to himself that taking on that many people will be difficult. Some time passes and Min-soo arrives. Hwa-yoon wants him to fact-check the information that he just received, and he continues to get skill points. He confirms the 2 stories and says that one of them has to be lying. Changbei tries to say that Min-soo is the one who's lying. Hwa-yoon isn't the type to sit here and listen to them go back and forth. He grabs the 2 and Min-soo pulls out his phone, showing Hwa-yoon what happened during this gate in his previous life. The Lycans were too strong for normal players, and as a result, they poured out of the gate on January 7th, swarming the city. Usually, normal people are not interested in gates since all they need to do is evacuate from ones that are breaking, but the Lycan break was unlike the others. The monsters swarmed local cities and killed thousands of people in the early stages of the game. Everyone is hoping that a strong player can deal with this threat early on, not to repeat the same tragedy. And the person who defeated them the first time was none other than Hwa-yoon. He gets another skill point and calmly asks Changbei one more question. Who ordered him to smash his statue? The man tries to get another item out of his inventory, but he obviously forgot about the hand around his neck and died in the attempt. Hwa-yoon gets another skill point and talks to Min-soo on the situation. Min-soo questions why he needs all this information. He should just know everything, but Hwa-yoon finally tells him the truth, that he didn't regress, so all of this is news to him. Min-soo understands and tells him what's important right now is his level. He can't enter that dungeon unless he's level 5. Which shocks Hwa-yoon since he didn't think that there was this kind of restriction. He thought that levels were meaningless to him. He's still only level 2, but has another 162 stat points to allocate. How the fuck did he get this much? That's actually crazy. He calculates his stats and realizes that he's an equivalent to a level 80 player. He asks Min-soo to take him to a place where he can level up fast, and Min-soo suggests the Goblin and Orc gates. It's really the only one active since the game just started. These are the monsters that he usually ignores. He allocates all of his stat points into strength, increasing it to 187, and wonders if anything can break through his armor ability. Min-soo tells Hwa-yoon that his nickname, Shadow of Death, was given to him because of that same armor skill. When increasing his strength, not only does he get an offensive boost, but also a defensive one, thanks to his passive. He starts farming goblins left and right and asks Min-soo what a skill stone is. He heard that you need to swallow it in order to obtain a skill. Min-soo didn't believe him at first, but it seems Hwa-yoon didn't regress like everyone else, not even knowing something this basic. But he's way too strong not to be a regressor. Hwa-yoon yells at the boy to answer, and he confirms on what he said earlier. They're located near the monster's hearts, and skill stones are the size of a fist, and the color and glow indicates the skill's class and rarity, with red being legendary. The stealth skill in the Lycan dungeon is a rare skill, which means it will be a purple stone. Hwa-yoon asks for the class breakdown, and the skills are in order for common, rare, unique, and legendary. And each skill stone has less and less quantity of them, with legendaries being one of ones. He asks him about special skills like his butterfly effect, but Min-soo has no idea what he's talking about. So Hwa-yoon just quickly changes the subject. Our boy quickly reaches level 5, and it's time to take care of those Lycans. He'll handle everything himself and orders Min-soo to go into the crowd and be a lookout. As Min-soo leaves, Hwa-yoon just admires his loyalty and knows that Changbei wasn't lying. There's actually 100 players here waiting for him. His goal right now is to enter the dungeon first. Only 5 are allowed in, so he needs to get in order to get the skill stone before anyone else. The gate has 5 more minutes and the crowd begins heating up in anticipation. The leader tells them to keep their guard up. Hwa-yoon could be here at any minute, but that just makes our main character smile. As the gate opens, he rushes past everyone else with his insane agility stat. He thinks not a single person should be able to match his agility, so he just breezes by them into the gate. They try to gang up on him, but all fail, and he enters the dungeon, and the player limit has been reached. The 4 players who entered before him are now very scared. They've been trapped with a monster. Hwayun is happy since he doesn't need to explain anything to these guys. The four already know what's going on and try to attack him instantly. One of the men equips his whip and latches around Hwayun, which he pretends to be alarmed by. Hwayun is just thinking to himself that he's impressed they planned this out so well. We shift to a couple moments later and Hwayun flipped the script, trapping all four in the whip and net. He tells them it was a good try and the Lycans surround them. He asks the group if they want to be dog food and they all quickly apologize, just saying that they were doing only what they were told to. The Lycans rush in and Hwayun just asks who ordered them. The Lycans descend on our protagonist and the four boys think he's done for, but Hwayun quickly kills them all in one hit. He notices that some things applied to normal dogs also apply to dog monsters. If you grab and hold a dog's mouth shut, it will recognize that you are stronger, something he learned by being bit by a police dog. After this display of strength, that same dog never bit him again. He begins grabbing each Lycan by the mouth, crushing it with his bare hands. These monsters are stronger than orcs, but still no match for Hwayun, as the four boys are trembling in fear at this guy's strength. They ask why he isn't killing all the wolves, but Hwayun isn't in a hurry. There is 100 people waiting outside. 3 more dogs try to pounce but are easily dealt with, and Hwayun is starting to get bored and tells the boys it's their turn now. He thinks that humans were forced into fighting these creatures and no god would purposefully put them here. The new powers of the world became guilds, who had the public rallied behind them, and didn't just have fans, but believers. And a whole economy was built off the game, and items dropped materials and even weapons were bought and sold. Occupying a dungeon meant big profit, so guilds became huge businesses. He asks the boys who their leader is, and they inform him that it's Choi Chol-sung. He knows that name. It was one of the heroes with a statue next to his. He releases 2 of the men and breaks one of their shoulders with his sheer grip, and lets them know he isn't joking around. He continues his questions, and wasn't that guy one of the ones who went into the final dungeon with him? He should be a comrade, but Hwayun isn't stupid enough to fully believe that yet. He hadn't even met the man in his life, so someone he fought alongside him is now trying to steal his skills. He thinks that's understandable, it's human nature after all. Some more Lycans appear, interrupting his thoughts, and Hwayun isn't in the mood to spare anybody, and throws the 4 boys into the incoming dogs. Some time passes and the gate opens again since 4 players died, allowing another 4 to come in, and they are completely shocked to see what is going on. Hwayun got 93 bonus skill points in this dungeon, and these 4 bozos charge in. They are dealt with the exact same way as the first 4 morons and also questioned. These ones are different and they're answering the questions much faster. It must be all the dead dogs around, and seeing their torn apart comrades, they must think that they need to behave if they want any chance to survive. He asks the group who the boss monster is, and they tell him it's the Lycan with the white eyebrows. Hwayun spots it and kills it and plunges its fist deep into its body to retrieve the skill stone. This is pretty disgusting for him though, and he thinks he should train Min-Soo to be a professional monster butcher. He finds the skill stone and the 4 captured players curse themselves, but it went back to its original owner, so nothing they can do about it. Hwayun knows he can make a lot of money out of this if he sells it, but he'll still use it in this life. Money isn't relevant anymore in the world, but rather strength. Strength is the only thing that's important in this new world. It will allow him to wield the power that transcends things like money. He wants a world where he can write history and swallows the orb. He gets a new skill point and is informed that he can't use this skill until he is level 10, and he's only level 6 at the moment, and is really starting to hate this level grind, even for how strong he is. It's meaningless without increasing his level. He applies another 102 points into strength, increasing it to 289. Hwayun was hoping to use his new skill to evade the crowd, but he needs some XP first. Having an almost 300 strength stat causes him to one-shot the Lycans with a single flick. He needs to be able to control his strength not to completely obliterate these monsters. After farming the dungeon for a while, he levels up to level 10 and gains the stealth skill. He activates it, but only his skin becomes translucent. One of the captured men inform him that he needs to increase his skill level, and after that, the clothes will also become invisible. He was already this strong with only level 1 skills. He needs to raise his level in order to strengthen these skills. This knowledge hits him like a truck, and he noticed that the other skills he got, like armor and butterfly effect, have a level next to them, and both of them are at level 1. He confirms with the man that when he rises the stealth skill to level 2, he will become fully invisible, and the guy agrees. He takes this information and thinks it's interesting for now and removes his clothes and casts stealth so he can at least be invisible for now. He leaves these players to their fate since he sees no reason to keep them alive. As he leaves, the pack of Lycans start to surround them.
And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2. Also subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.